In the misty hills of Somerset, England, Thaddeus Holt worked the forge as his ancestors had for 5 generations. At 57, his calloused hands shaped metal with practiced precision while his weathered face, etched with lines of concentration, reflected decades of dedication to his craft. The rhythmic clang of hammer on anvil had been the soundtrack to his solitary life, until fate delivered an unexpected companion. The thoroughbred arrived on a dreary November morning, a magnificent chestnut stallion with a white blaze running down his face like a streak of lightning. Thornfield's Thunder, his papers called him, though the racing syndicate that owned him had all but written him off as unmanageable and a waste of good breeding. "He's got heart but no discipline," explained Reginald Winthrop, the syndicate manager, as he practically shoved the horse's papers into Thaddeus's reluctant hands. "We've tried 3 trainers. Nobody can work with him. He's yours for a pittance if you want him, or he's headed to auction." Thaddeus had never owned a racehorse. His modest income from the blacksmith trade barely covered his own needs. But something in Thunder's defiant eyes spoke to him. Perhaps it was recognition of a kindred spirit, both stubborn, both misunderstood by the world around them. "Why bring him to me?" Thaddeus questioned, even as his hand reached out to stroke the horse's muscular neck. "You've been shoeing our horses for 20 years. You've got away with the difficult ones," Winthrop replied with a shrug. "Besides, I remember you mentioned your grandfather trained jumpers. Thought you might want a project in your spare time." With that, Winthrop departed, leaving Thaddeus with an unexpected companion. Thunder was indeed troublesome. He kicked fence posts until they splintered, refused to be bridled without a fight, and displayed a particular talent for escaping any enclosure. But Thaddeus observed something others had missed. The horse wasn't vicious or stupid. He was frustrated, bored, and possessed of extraordinary intelligence. Where traditional trainers had tried to break Thunder's spirit through dominance, Thaddeus took a different approach. Each morning before dawn, he would sit in the small paddock beside his forge, speaking to Thunder in low, steady tones while working on small metalcraft projects. He respected the horse's space, never forcing interaction. 2 weeks passed this way until one foggy morning, Thunder approached the blacksmith of his own accord, gently nudging Thaddeus's shoulder with his velvet muzzle. It was a small gesture, but Thaddeus recognized it as a monumental shift, the beginning of trust. The village locals thought the blacksmith had lost his mind, spending his savings on a failed racehorse. "Old Thaddeus has finally gone round the bend," they'd whisper in the local pub. "Talking to that beast like it's a person." But Thaddeus recognized something special in Thunder. In the quiet moments at dusk, when the stallion would run free in the small meadow behind the forge, his powerful muscles moving with fluid grace beneath his gleaming coat, Thaddeus glimpsed greatness waiting to be unlocked. The blacksmith had always understood metal, how to heat it, shape it, strengthen it without breaking it. Perhaps these same principles could apply to the magnificent creature now in his care. Winter melted into spring, and with the changing seasons came transformation. Thaddeus developed a training regimen unlike anything in conventional racing circles. Drawing from his blacksmith's discipline, he forged a relationship with Thunder based on mutual respect rather than dominance. The blacksmith installed a series of iron bells throughout the paddock, each with a distinct tone. He would ring one and reward Thunder with an apple slice when the horse approached the correct bell. Soon, Thunder could distinguish between 8 different tones, demonstrating an intelligence that astonished even Thaddeus. "Horses understand rhythm," Thaddeus explained to Maeve Donovan, the local veterinarian who had become increasingly intrigued by his methods. With her copper-red hair often escaping its practical braid, and keen eyes that missed nothing, Maeve had initially come to check on Thunder's health but returned regularly out of professional curiosity. "Their hearts beat in patterns, their hooves strike the ground in patterns," Thaddeus continued. "Thunder doesn't need a whip or a harsh bit, he needs to find his rhythm." Thaddeus adapted tools from his forge, creating lightweight metal balls that made different sounds when they rolled across the ground. He crafted specialized horseshoes that distributed Thunder's weight more efficiently, accounting for his unique gait. The blacksmith's nights were spent studying equine anatomy and racing theory by lamplight until his eyes burned with fatigue. While traditional trainers worked their thoroughbreds on strict schedules, Thaddeus observed that Thunder performed best at dawn and dusk. He adjusted accordingly, rising before the sun to work with his horse when the stallion was most receptive. Their training sessions often looked more like play. Thaddeus would hide treats around the meadow, encouraging Thunder to develop problem-solving skills along with physical stamina. "You're treating him like he's human," Maeve observed one evening, leaning against the fence as Thunder triumphantly discovered an apple hidden in a hollow log. "I'm treating him like he's intelligent," Thaddeus corrected. That's different. Word of the blacksmith's unusual methods spread through surrounding villages. Some came to mock, others out of curiosity. Among them was Orion Blackwood, a retired jockey whose career had ended after a devastating fall 10 years earlier. Now walking with a pronounced limp and supporting himself as a racing consultant, Orion watched Thunder move with an expert's eye. He runs like he's dancing, Orion remarked, his weathered face thoughtful. Most horses run from fear or training. Yours runs for joy. He's not racing material, Thaddeus replied protectively. He's happy here. But Orion shook his head. A horse like that needs to run. Really run. It's in his blood. Before leaving, he pressed a business card into Thaddeus's reluctant hand. When you're ready to see what he can really do, call me. That night, Thaddeus sat late in his cottage, staring at the card. Thunder had transformed from the angry, frustrated animal who had arrived 6 months earlier. He was healthy, intelligent, and displayed remarkable speed during their morning gallops across the meadow. Was it selfish to keep such a magnificent creature limited to a blacksmith's small paddock? Summer arrived, bringing with it a drought that threatened Thaddeus's livelihood. With farms struggling and horses being sold off, work for a rural blacksmith dwindled. One particularly desperate evening, after calculating his dwindling savings, Thaddeus pulled out Orion Blackwood's crumpled business card. Their meeting was arranged at Halewood Downs, a small but respectable racing venue 30 miles from Thaddeus's forge. Orion had secured permission for a private trial run in the early morning hours before the track opened for regular training. Loading Thunder into the borrowed trailer tested Thaddeus's nerves more than the horses. He had never taken Thunder far from home, and uncertainty gnawed at him throughout the pre-dawn drive. Had he made a terrible mistake, exposing his sensitive companion to the very environment that had rejected him? At the track, Thunder emerged from the trailer with pricked ears and flared nostrils, taking in the unfamiliar sense of the professional racing establishment. To Thaddeus's surprise, the horse showed curiosity rather than fear. Orion had arranged for Paloma Vasquez to ride Thunder for the trial. A petite woman with obsidian eyes that missed nothing, Paloma had retired from professional racing after becoming the first female jockey to win the Grand National. Now she worked exclusively as a horse evaluator for elite racing syndicates. "This is the blacksmith's miracle horse?" she asked skeptically, looking Thunder over with a professional eye. Her doubt was evident, but she agreed to the ride as a favor to Orion. Thaddeus felt his stomach knot as he watched Paloma mount. No one but he had been on Thunder's back in all these months. Would the horse revert to his old ways? Would all their trust be shattered in an instant? Thunder shifted uneasily at first, adjusting to the unfamiliar weight and hands. Thaddeus stepped forward and whispered in the horse's ear, words too soft for others to hear, before stepping back with a nod to Paloma. What happened next would later be described by Orion as a moment when the impossible becomes visible. Thunder didn't merely run, he flew. His stride, unconventional by racing standards but perfectly balanced, devoured the track. Paloma, initially intending just a gentle familiarization lap, found herself carried along as Thunder set his own pace, his powerful body moving with joyous precision. When they finished the circuit, Paloma's professional facade had cracked into amazement. She dismounted with shaking hands, looking from the horse to Thaddeus with newfound respect. "What did you say to him?" she demanded. Thaddeus shrugged. "I just reminded him that he knows how to dance." The stopwatch in Orion's hand told the incredible story. Thunder had run the mile in a time that would have placed him among the top performers at any major track. And he had done it with joy rather than desperate exertion, finishing with energy to spare. "He needs to race," Paloma stated flatly. "Not just for money, but because it's what he was born to do." Orion Blackwood's connections proved invaluable. Through his recommendation, Thunder was granted entry into a qualifying race at Newmarket, though the entry fee nearly depleted Thaddeus's savings. The racing establishment viewed the blacksmith and his horse with skepticism and amusement, a provincial curiosity rather than serious competition. On race day, Thaddeus insisted on maintaining their established routine. He arrived hours before dawn, leading Thunder through their familiar warm-up rituals despite raised eyebrows from professional trainers. Maeve Donovan arrived unexpectedly to provide moral support, her presence a steadying influence as Thaddeus navigated the unfamiliar world of professional racing. "Remember what makes him special," she advised as they watched the other thoroughbreds being prepared with mechanical precision. "Don't try to make him like them." The race itself became the stuff of racing legend. Thunder, wearing his blacksmith-crafted specialized shoes, started poorly, the noise and confinement of the starting gate nearly triggering his old anxieties. He emerged last, seeming to confirm the establishment's dismissive predictions. But then something remarkable happened. Rather than expending energy in the initial chaotic rush, Thunder found his rhythm, moving with increasing confidence as the race progressed. By the final turn he had picked off competitors one by one, his distinctive gait allowing him to conserve energy where others faltered. In the final furlong, Thunder surged past the frontrunner with such commanding ease that the race announcer momentarily lost his professional composure. And coming from nowhere, it's Thornfield's Thunder. My word, where did this horse come from? The victory sent shockwaves through the racing community. Overnight, Thaddeus and Thunder became the compelling narrative that sports journalists craved, the blacksmith and his rescued horse defying the racing establishment. Offers began pouring in from prestigious racing syndicates, most seeking to purchase Thunder outright for sums that could have set Thaddeus up for life. More surprisingly came the interest from elite jockeys. After Thunder's second victory at Royal Ascot, where he broke a course record that had stood for 15 years, the competition to ride him became fierce. Jockeys who had previously commanded six-figure fees now offered to ride for a minimal share, simply to be associated with the phenomenon. Vincenzo Ricci, six-time winner of the European Championship, publicly declared, "This horse runs like no other I have seen in 30 years. He does not just run with his body but with his mind and spirit. I would pay for the privilege to ride him once." Through it all, Thaddeus maintained his unconventional methods. Thunder continued living at the forge rather than a professional stable. The horse's race schedule was limited to allow for ample recovery and mental stimulation between competitions. Most controversially, Thaddeus insisted on mixing track training with their original games and problem-solving exercises, earning mockery from traditional trainers even as they secretly began adopting elements of his approach. As Thunder's winning streak extended to 7 consecutive victories, including 2 Group 1 races, the bids from jockeys reached unprecedented levels. The once rejected horse had not only become a champion but was changing how the racing world understood thoroughbred potential. 1 year after Thunder's professional debut, Thaddeus faced his greatest challenge, an invitation to the Dubai World Cup, the richest horse race in the world with a purse of $12 million. The competition would pit Thunder against international champions, horses bred and trained by the world's most sophisticated racing operations. In the weeks before the race, pressure mounted from all sides. Sponsors offered lucrative deals contingent on Thunder wearing their branded equipment rather than Thaddeus's custom-forged shoes. Top trainers suggested Thaddeus step aside and let professionals handle this level of competition. Even Orion cautioned that Dubai's desert heat and the stress of international travel might prove too much for their unconventional approach. The night before their departure, Thaddeus sat alone in his forge, the familiar sense of metal and coal providing little comfort against his growing doubts. Had he pushed too far? Was he risking Thunder's well-being for glory or validation? His contemplation was interrupted by the arrival of Maeve, who had become not just Thunder's veterinarian but Thaddeus's closest confidant throughout their journey. "You're questioning everything," she observed, taking a seat beside him on the worn wooden bench. "Am I doing this for him or for me?" Thaddeus asked quietly. Maeve considered this before answering. "I've watched that horse every step of this journey. When he runs, there's joy in every movement. You didn't create that, you unlocked it." She placed her hand over his. "Trust what you've built together." The Dubai World Cup drew the elite of global racing and a television audience of millions. Thunder's arrival created a sensation, not transported in luxury like his competitors but personally accompanied by Thaddeus in a modified trailer fitted with the comforts of home. For the race, every jockey of note had submitted bids for the mount, culminating in an unprecedented offer from Khalil Nasser, the legendary UAE champion. $3 million for the privilege of riding Thunder, win or lose. But Thaddeus surprised everyone by selecting Paloma Vasquez, who had ridden Thunder in that first trial run. She understood him before anyone believed in him, Thaddeus explained simply. Thunder remembers that. Under the blazing desert sun, against the world's finest thoroughbreds, Thunder faced his greatest challenge. The pace was punishing from the start, with several competitors clearly instructed to exhaust Thunder early. By mid-race, he had fallen to 7th position, struggling with the unfamiliar surface and relentless heat. In the grandstand, racing commentators began writing off the Blacksmith's folly. But Thaddeus, watching intently, saw what others missed. Thunder wasn't faltering. He was adapting, finding his rhythm in this new environment just as he had learned to do with every challenge. At the final turn, Paloma gave Thunder the signal they had practiced. Not a harsh command with crop or spur, but a gentle shift in position that reminded the horse of their dawn gallops back in Somerset. Thunder responded with heart-stopping acceleration, moving to the outside where the track was firmest, finding his stride with joyous determination. The finish was so close that the crowd held its collective breath waiting for the photo results. When Thunder was confirmed as the victor by a nose, the explosion of cheers rolled across the desert like thunder itself. In the winner's circle, surrounded by royalty and racing elites, Thaddeus stood with quiet pride as Thunder was draped in roses. Reporters thrust microphones forward, asking what revolutionary training methods had created this miracle horse. Thaddeus considered his response carefully before speaking. There was never anything wrong with Thunder, he said finally. He just needed someone to listen to him instead of forcing him to listen. Sometimes the greatest talent doesn't need to be created or controlled, it just needs to be believed in. In the years that followed, Thunder's legacy transformed horse racing. The Holt method became studied in equestrian schools worldwide. Thaddeus established a foundation dedicated to rehabilitating rejected racehorses, with Maeve, now his wife, serving as chief veterinarian. Their facility in Somerset became famous for seeing potential where others saw only failure. As for Thunder, he retired after 3 glorious years with a record that experts predicted would stand for decades. He returned to the paddock beside the forge where his journey began, still racing at dawn and dusk, not for glory or prizes but for the pure joy of running as he was born to do, his hoofbeats keeping perfect rhythm with the blacksmith's hammer.